Hello, I'm Q. Thanks for joining the Thoughts for Living podcast. We are committed to creating and publishing content that's useful to you. Here's this week's show.
In changing the subject a little bit, we're still seeing minority influence on decision making. How does gun violence and that idea of who needs to be in the room, how does that affect our policies from a public health standpoint, in your opinion?
And whenever you're dealing with death, you're dealing with public health. You don't want people dying just out of
senseless.
Not just senseless, just not having the proper information. But I think when the Constitution was written, and we have these laws, and I'm a gun owner, love my guns, roll up on me and see what happens. But that's just me. But I'm just saying, we're not trying to take away. I'm not trying to take away individual guns.
Exactly.
But when you have people who don't know how to use the gun in a proper manner, then you have to educate individuals, and you have to check them out mentally. I just last week, I was driving to go get something to eat. And they were fixing the roads. And this guy, I guess he was gonna just drive on the opposite side where the construction was happening. You see all these people hollering, "Hey, stop, stop, stop." And I happened to look over. And when I looked over, he's pointing a gun at me because he wants to get in front of me. So I'm thinking quick, I don't have a gun in my car. I got this nice little leather wallet, and I just pull it like I got a gun too. Like, what we gonna do? So yes, and so when you have incidents like that, they don't need guns. But I don't think that the Constitution was saying that a gun like a surface air missile. That's what I want in my arsenal, and I can feel like I need to put that in there to defend myself. I don't think the Constitution was talking about that because they had muskets and slingshots.
Right, exactly.
So within reason, we should be able to say what can and can't be had at a home. If you have military experience and you can get called up anytime, or martial law is at play and you're a military person, and if you need that because you've been called up, I understand that. But Mr. or Mrs. whomever down the street, I don't think they need that. I don't think they need that to hunt with because you could do it in a nice, humane way. Get a bow and arrow. I mean, just go back to the basics. But I don't think that when the Constitution was written, they were talking about AK-47s and bump stock this and all these different things. And as far as public health wise, we don't just want to go around killing people. Like, I wake up one day and I decide I don't like a particular race, so I'm just going to start shooting at them. That's not right. So we do need to have some type of mental health testing or criteria to before we give someone a gun that can do those things. Now, if you a regular handgun, it's only so much damage you can do. Not to say you're supposed to do it, but it's only so much damage you can do before someone can throw a chair or whatever. I know I work for Department of in the government, and they, one of the things when you're going through all these trainings, they tell you, you go through these trainings where it's possibly gun person coming in the building. What do you do?
What do you do?
Run, you hide, and in last results, you fight. So, but some people like me, my first instinct is to fight. That's just me, I guess, because I'm short. But, when you have those, it's a policy in place for what you should do before it gets out of hand. And I think that with all these wonderful minds that we have, all you male men, that you all could come up with another way that could everybody can benefit. And I can still keep my gun. You can keep yours. But crazy down the street don't need an AK-47.
Well, I like what you said, Q. I think that's part of the problem. There's mostly males in the room. I think part of the problem, as someone said, if you have a problem and you gather up a group of carpenters, well, they got one solution: hammers and nails. So, as you said earlier, diversifying who's in the room is absolutely necessary if you want a different outcome.
That's right.
If you want a different outcome. And I think part of the reasoning is that the absence of a woman's perspective, a professional mother's perspective could broaden our approaches to that issue. The other thing I was thinking about as you was describing about opportunities to make sure that those who do possess firearms should be able to have them. I think right now, in a lot of situations, we provide more checks and balances to drive a car at 75 miles an hour, right, than we do on being able to access a weapon. And I'm also thinking about, too, Q, our communities, there's no gun factory, in East Point, right? There's the proliferation. I'm questioning, how is it a lot of these weapons end up in our community, where we are already under-resourced a lot of times. We have, from a public health standpoint, we're experiencing food deserts. From a public health standpoint, we have under-resourced schools. From a public health standpoint, our housing, high-quality housing and affordable housing is not always available, right? But then in our community, you can always find drugs, guns, and alcohol. And to me, if you put that mix together, I'm not a chef, but I could guess what's going to come out of that, those ingredients. Likewise, at the national level, we've seen evidence where at one time, European Americans were the only ethnicity in the United States whose mortality was actually declining. And that was due to suicides, opioid addiction, and alcoholism, which says something to me about not only people's access, but the context that we live in that really strains people's mental capacities. I almost want to say that living in a white racist context drives people mad. And I don't think a proper analysis of what that means, not only for the people of color and poor whites who are being oppressed, as well as those who participate in our oppression, how this context frays people's mental stability. How would you view that? How would you view living, trying to make it in such difficult circumstances? How does that wear on people's mental stability?
I can't speak for everybody, but I can say this. We all, like I said, have self-worth and value. And it all starts with you knowing that if you need help, you need to get it. Mm-hmm. It also starts with you knowing that if I don't start moving towards something positive in my own community, nothing will get done. Mm-hmm. And as a public health perspective, information that is disseminated, whether it's on time or after the fact, then we should always be looking to be abreast and have those mouthpieces in our community that can tell us what's going on. Because I'm not always abreast on what's going on. You may not be always abreast on what's going on. I'm looking at public health. Yeah, somebody else might be looking at education. Somebody may be looking at health in general, like, cancer research or diabetes research. So you have to be able to collaborate these minds into one cohesiveness. Mm-hmm. And one thing I always think about is, as a public health person, if my society is lacking, eventually that lack will spill over to something else. So if you really want to help and get this together, if we're all working together,
to improve
our lives,
yes.
you got to help maintain the person that is below what you would call the curve or the standard or living in the impoverished areas. Because once you give them the ability to move forward, then the support system, then they can do that. And I think it's a Chinese proverb that said, if you give a man a fish, he can eat for a day. But if you teach him to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. And it's the same concept. If you have the means, the ability to help someone that is lacking in a sense, and you can help them, but you refuse, eventually you think that's not going to touch you, but it will.
Yes.
So COVID taught me this, if it taught me nothing else, is that no matter how much you make or do not make, no matter what color, are you blue, orange, gray, purple, silver, you still can be affected by it.
Yes.
And it really brought home a perspective for me, because that's how we should look at the world anyway. We should be interrelated, because we are all here together, and we're, like you would say, interrelated. And I think in order for us to be able to change the narrative, we have to change our own mindset as a people. And we have to know that we have value, we have self-worth, and that we have to disseminate information in the correct manner, in the right way. That's why the civil rights movement works so well. And the people don't talk about Rosa Parks almost basically bankrupting the busing system in Montgomery, Alabama. And that was because people were willing to go the extra mile. They were willing to sacrifice.
Yes.
They were willing to put themselves in the minority, us group, and move forward. It was not a separation. It was just, if we don't do this, then we will blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And we had enough people to say, let's get on board.
Right.
And so the movement starts with us being able to know that there's a change that's going to come.
Yes.
And then we have to learn how to work that change. So that's why you had to sit in at the counters, and you have all these things that you, steps that you have to take. And I think when it comes to gun violence, when it comes to public health crisis, when it comes to women's rights, we have to all take a seat at the counter. And we all have to take a seat at the counter and notice who's in the room. Because everybody matters that's in the room. And people who are on the outside looking in, they matter too. And so we have to, as a people, I think, when I say people.
Yes, you're talking about humanity.
I'm talking about everyone.
Yes.
That we have to recognize that we have to work together. And that, one person shouldn't have the ability to change the narrative when they get mad. And we used to say this too when I was a young kid. I don't know, I'm telling my age.
Go ahead.
You know how you have somebody in the neighborhood who have the basketball and everybody's out there balling and he gets mad, he want to take his ball home.
Right.
Don't be the ball taker. Join the game, be mad. When it's your turn to play again, then you play. That's just how it should be.
That's how it should be.
Because I don't think God intended for a man to tell women what to do, and God intended for a man to control the narratives of females.
Yes.
And that's what I think. And I think I'm going to go back to Adam and Eve, because I'm a Christian.
That's wrong with that.
So
Kim.
Eve said, here, Adam, eat this thing, man.
Right.
And Adam said, okay. He went with it.
Yeah.
And so God said, all right, this is my version. Read it for yourself in Genesis. But this is my version. So then when God comes looking for them, they got clothes on, they're doing all this little stuff. And he said, hey, where y'all at? And Adam was like, well, we decided we put some clothes on and da-da-da. And then the Lord was like, well, what's going on? The woman you gave me.
Right.
So y'all been passing the blame since the garden, man. Come on.
Right.
So we got to realize that when God created them, he said he created them basically together as one.
Yeah.
So we're as one. You can't separate the male from the female or the female from the male. And I think that's the problem. We're trying to do a separation when it comes to rights, responsibilities, and all these other things.
Yes.
We don't separate.
Right.
And we do
Right.
better when we work together as one.
Right.
God knows what he's doing, knows what he's saying.
Sure.
But yeah, that's my version of Genesis. That's not the correct way. So please read it for yourself out of the Holy Bible, any version that you like, NIV or a New Standard Version. You know, that's what I'm talking about.
I think it's great that you bring that piece, the metaphysical, the spiritual, the religious piece, the moral and ethical piece to public health, because ultimately we do have to consider what is our ethics and what kind of criteria are we using in establishing our ethics. Something else that you said that about working together, the first people on the planet, ecological consciousness theory suggests that they valued the group. Everyone mattered. Our ancestors, the first Africans who walked on the planet, right? Everyone in that group mattered. And that group then worked collaboratively in order to meet the needs of the group. Now, those needs could have been viewed as individual needs, food, clothing, shelter. I need to get mine. But I think they really understood that they could better meet those needs if they worked together. And not only did they do that, value the group, not only did they value collaboration, they also valued spirituality. They came to understand that they were spiritual beings, that they were created beings, that the world that they lived in was an interrelated symbiotic network, right? I need air.
Yes.
I need food. I need fresh water. And they saw themselves as a part of this living creative process, right? And out of that, right, they come to see themselves, right, after they go through a period of somewhat nomadic existence where they had to follow the seasons in terms of fruits and herds. But once our ancestors made that leap to being able to actually understand agriculture, to actually grow crops, where they made that leap to where they could actually domesticate animals. So now they don't have to move. They can stay in one place. They see in their own bodies they're able to reproduce. They see that their animals reproduce. They see that their crops reproduce. I don't think it's a big leap to understand that they could create and then they could extrapolate from that, then I am created. So much so, right? Then later on we find when they bury their dead, what do? They put the stuff in the ground. Why? Because they think there's a place beyond this reality, right? And I need to have my stuff, right, with me. Nice elementary thinking, but it lets us know how they were thinking. And today, all accepted religions accept that there is life beyond death. And ecological consciousness theory goes on to say that the outcome of living that way, of valuing the group, valuing everyone, valuing not only every person, but valuing this earth, right? The plant life, the animal life, the water, the air, that living in an ethical and moral way, understanding spirituality, that you are a created being and your relationship to the rest of creation. Out of living that way, the outcome was personhood, right? And I always say this, my mother never cared what vocation I went into. She wanted me to be a good person, to demonstrate the values that I had been taught in that home and those values that were reinforced by the other members of that community. And that's, I think, is humanity's default, because it comes from the first people that walked on the planet. Now, according to ecological consciousness theory, sometime around the 16th century, we get what's called the European Enlightenment. And during this time, European males, rather than take this we focus, right, that I am because we are, they take this focus from Descartes that says, I think, therefore I am. And then they start to organize human relations, not based on valuing the group. They organize it based on valuing the individual. They organize it not based on valuing collaboration, they organize life based on competition. So you get this diametrically opposed way of seeing the world, right? Of not valuing everyone, valuing the individual, just me, right? And not working together, which is what you've advocated throughout this program, and most human beings would advocate, let's work together. But the value system that we live under says, no, let's compete. And then if we're competing, do you help anybody that you're competing with? No, you don't help. So then and so if we're, that kind of mindset then would is all about making money, right? That's what it's about. That's what we're competing for, right? Who can get the most stuff? And ecological consciousness theory suggests that living that way, valuing the individual, valuing competition, valuing secularism, no religion, no morals. We don't want to hear that stuff. And then the outcome of that is personal achievement at all costs. And it's justified, whatever I do, in order to get status. And what I've heard tells me that when you have if you see the world that way, from an individual, competitive, non-spiritual, personal achievement standpoint, do you try to tell a woman what to do with her body? You'll get on a ship and sail to another land and get off the ship and claim the land is yours for your king, kill the men, rape the women, sell the children. That's what comes out of that kind of mindset. That individualism, competition says that I want it my way and doesn't think about how that is going to impact you, right? Because basically what the Supreme Court does, it said, I think most of those guys are married, right? So you really saying that you want to put your wife and your daughter in a situation that they really had to go all the way through a pregnancy regardless? That's pretty selfish. And to me, that's a very uncaring attitude toward your fellow human beings. But I would have to say, based on the history, that's been the default for Europeans. They've consistently, over a 400-year period, killed indigenous people, taken their land, and then they establish themselves as being honorable, that we believe in law and order. After you went to Africa and kidnapped people and sold them. I want to thank you so much for taking out of your day, Q.
Thank you.
To give us a perspective that I think is so missing. As I said, I've looked on television the last couple of days. When I see an African-American female's face, it's a 2-second soundbite. I think it's very important that we hear from African-American professionals, public health experts, who can frame what we are experiencing in a way that helps us better understand what we need to do in order to prepare our children through access to information and to help us understand that we need to push for more diversity inside the rooms where decisions are being made that's ultimately going to impact the majority of us.
Correct.
We'd like to thank you for joining us at the Thoughts for Living. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Wow. As you can see, we see the world a little bit differently. We think that's important because if we see the world differently, it might help us in making different decisions. And those different decisions might lead us to a different kind of world, a more loving, kind, and sustainable world. Thank you for helping us in that endeavor. Please feel free to reach out to us at thoughtsforliving.com. Have a great rest of your week.